Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome to the 52nd level of the RPG Cave. I'm one of your hosts, the level 99 human archmage Ryan Turford. I'm joined, as always, by the level 99 elf medic, Mr. Garret Bland. Garret, how are you doing on this lovely Tuesday evening? I know this is a different night of the week for you, but I hope you're doing well nonetheless.
I'm doing good, man. I am hyped up from all these games and celebration going on over the weekend. And guess what, Ryan?
What's that, Sean?
I got my RPG Cave merch.
Let's go.
I really like it. I got a perfect size for me, size medium, and I love the logo. I love the material of this. It's my new favorite shirt, for sure. I love it.
Dude, so. I'm so happy it finally came in. In fact, we also saw Nagachaka and you were matching today because he also got his RPG Cave shirt as well. Of course, we just tease Nagachaka all the time because he's like the official, we consider him the official model for, the merch for Carpool Gaming.
I can say that, yes.
But that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoy it because I also really like the build quality of those shirts as well. And I think we make some awesome merch as well. And plus, it's awesome to, have an RPG Cave shirt in our hands to prove that this show does in fact exist, Garret, and we're not just
we're here, okay?
Yeah.
And we're talking.
Exactly. I'm not wearing mine today. I'm wearing a Metroid Fusion shirt instead because I'm less cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but we're
good
through this. But of course, let's clear the dungeon of the pesky mobs because we don't like trash mobs. We want to get them out of the way so we can kill this raid boss. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of ways to do that. And if you're watching the live stream right now at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. And let us know in the comments what some of your favorite things that you saw during this quote-unquote E3 week in the world of RPGs are. We want to hear from you, definitely. So in the comments below, let us know what you think. Also, if you're listening to us on podcast services around the globe, don't forget to hit that subscribe button there as well. Maybe rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify if you're listening there in particular. Also, if you want this show as well as some exclusive content, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming. Throw a little tip in the old tip jar and out comes content. And also, if you want a piece of merch like the shirt that Garret is wearing, like an RPG Cave shirt or a shirt based off any of the other Carpool Gaming shows, head over to our merch store. The link is in the show notes as well. Well, Garret, this is going to be a long show if we don't get into this right away. So it's time to read
pretty much
from the sacred texts because it's time to talk about E3 or E3 in quotations. I guess we could just call it Summer Game Fest, I guess, but it just doesn't roll
Summer
off the
Game
tongue,
Fest plus Xbox plus other things that happen over the weekend.
and I will say, honestly, going into this discussion, Garret, I expected this list to be longer, but I think part of that is at the time we're recording this, the Nintendo Direct just hasn't happened yet at all. So it's just one of those things where we haven't got a chance to talk about that. Also, I see Rebecca, aka Forrest Minish in the chat, mentions, how about that Wholesome Games Showcase? Garret, did you have a chance to check out the Wholesome Games Showcase?
I watched the whole... Yeah, I did. It's pretty good. Actually, that got me more excited about smaller indie games than the Summer Games Fest list. And that's just maybe because of my taste, because there was a lot of games in the Summer Games Fest. It was a little samey. It was like, oh, here's your space horror. And I'm like, I mean, that's cool. I'll play one of them, I guess. But there was just a lot of them. And then there was Call of Duty. I've had my Call of Duty phase. I'm kind of just past it. I dab and try here and there. But yeah, the Wholesome Game Showcase was pretty good. There's a couple of games in there that really caught my eye. One of them is Potion Permit. You got to look this up, Ryan, because it is like a crafting RPG made in heaven. It is by an indie studio. I am totally into it. It looks fantastic. So yeah, a lot of cute games in there for sure.
That's awesome.
Kept me interested.
Yeah, I just didn't have a chance to watch it because it was happening when I think we were at the bar with like Carpool Gaming fans, and I just haven't had a chance to watch it since then. So, but I should definitely check it out at some point, and hopefully there's some awesome games. Then real quick, Garret, to start off this discussion, because we're to kind of go all over the place with RPG announcements that have happened. Was there any other RPG announcements or news from the Wholesome Direct that you wanted to touch on first before we move on from that?
There was another one that Rebecca showed me. It was like a frog RPG game that looked really dope as well. I would have to look up the name of it again. But basically, imagine like it's like a 2D Zelda-ish, but it has RPG combat mechanics and in an adventure very similar to other of those types of games. Looked really cute as well, very pixelated. I just love the games that actually come from the Wholesome Game Showcase because they have an aesthetic that's very pleasing. It's not like gory and violent or anything like that. It's supposed to be that wholesome, cute type of game. So if you guys are into that, check out the Wholesome Game Showcase because I think there's a lot of neat indie games and indie RPGs that are coming out.
Nice. And Rebecca points out in the chat, A Frog's Tale is what it's called. There's a Kickstarter for it as well. So
Frog's Tale.
I'm definitely going to have to check that one out as well. So, yeah, we'll talk about that, another day. In fact, especially with all of the news coming up that we didn't get this week, there might be a chance we do another news show like this probably in the next couple weeks or something like that. So
for sure,
we'll talk about that then. But of course, I'm just talking off the cuff. So we're obviously cover stuff from the Sony State of Play. We're also going to cover stuff from Summer Game Fest. We got to talk about stuff from the Xbox Showcase, as well as some other stuff that's come out from other non-showcase news that came from reported interviews and things like that. So we're going to go all over the place, and then we're also going to have a segment at the end of our discussion called Missing in Action, where we go over some of the games that we expected to hear something about but just didn't hear anything about. And I'm not even talking about Nintendo specific stuff because we know the Nintendo Direct is happening at some point. But there's a lot of stuff on PlayStation, for example, that we expected to hear something from and we haven't yet. So we're going to touch on those towards the end. So first off, I got to start with this one. This is the only thing I wanted to touch on from the State of Play, and that is Final Fantasy 16 getting its release window summer 2023, as well as a big gameplay trailer with the summons from the Final Fantasy franchise. We also kind of got the confirmation of the team that's behind this, the full team, not just the fact that it was Yoshi P from Final Fantasy 14, the producer that kind of helped rescue Final Fantasy 14 from the depths of mediocrity, but also Soken San, who does all the music for Final Fantasy 14, is doing the music for 16, but also the lead combat designer for Devil May Cry, who had left Capcom and was actually picked up by Square Enix pretty recently, is heading up the combat design for this game, which is really exciting to see, and you can definitely see it on display kind of in the trailer with some of the combat that's going on, with a whole bunch of different combos and juggling enemies in the air and stuff like that. It seems like it's kind of like a mishmash between, the Final Fantasy 14 kind of summon aesthetic, political intrigue in medieval times, and then Devil May Cry, just all mishmashed into one game together. So
this is an interesting fusion. Yeah. So you know me, I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan. I'm not going into it. I don't know a lot of things about Final Fantasy, but from what I can tell with this one, they are really going into the action-heavy part of this game, which is fine. I think that's good because they have other games that can be the slow, turn-based kind of games. Let their, tempo kind of game be very kind of accessible to a lot of players. I think this is a good move. I liked what I saw with the combat. It reminded me a more refined combat version of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and more stylized, I think, which I think that's what they're going for. Yeah. I like the setting of Final Fantasy 16. We're going back to medieval times, which is, we don't really get those in Final Fantasy mainline games, right? We had these weird space future type of,
or you get a lot of steampunk stuff as well, like Final Fantasy 12 was like that. It's been the last time we got a fantasy based fantasy themed Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy 9 as far as the mainline games was concerned. So that was a long time ago. That was PlayStation 1 era, Garrett, going all the way back. So I mean, for sure, I'm stoked for this game. I've been stoked for this game for a long time, but I know, again, as a non-Final Fantasy fan, Garrett, has your interest been piqued enough that this would be your first big attempt at a day and date Final Fantasy game, or you do you think you're still on the fence with this one?
You know what? I have a PS5, and I think I need more than Sony exclusives in order to like really justify my purchase with the PS5, and I think Final Fantasy 16 is a big one.
Mhm.
So definitely we'll keep my eye on it. I'll probably watch more of it, but most likely I will get it day one if there isn't really other games around that time that I want more
Mhm.
of. I think yeah, I would definitely try this out day and date.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Whereas I'm just day one of on this, of course, but everyone kind
no
of
matter
knows
what.
that being the Final Fantasy person. But I mean, there are Final Fantasy games I wasn't day one on. Stuff like Final Fantasy Origins or all of the spin-off games
Yeah.
I'm not day one on. And Final Fantasy 15, admittedly, I wasn't either. Just because I'm not really a huge fan of Nomura, who's the director of that game, and kind of his combat design philosophy. Like I just don't like the way that his games kind of feel to play.
That was a weird game.
So
That
I
was a
was
weird
just
one.
so I was just less into that one, so I didn't pick that one up day one either. But this one I'm for sure all in on it. Especially again as a big Final Fantasy 14 fan, I would be remiss if I wasn't excited about this one. Like
And
I
it's a
can't wait
pretty
to see what
good
they do with
team.
this one.
I'm very excited about it.
Especially too because we know like the lead writer who wrote the last two Final Fantasy 14 expansions, both Endwalker and Shadowbringers, is also writing 16 as well, and she's an amazing writer, both from the dialogue perspective, but also composing great and interesting stories with lots of layers. So yeah, I can't wait to find out more about this game next year. But also, I know a lot of people were sad that this isn't coming out this year. I know there were a lot of predictions about that, myself included. I was like, hey, maybe this game comes out this year, especially because there's supposed to be another Final Fantasy 14 expansion next fall. But
Hmm.
maybe the Final Fantasy 14 expansion gets delayed until 2024 at this point,
Could be.
just to make sure 16 comes out okay. But
Yeah, I think they were planning on it this year, but
yeah,
just a one delay, maybe because of COVID
yeah,
or something like
as long as
that.
it's awesome, that's all I care about. So yeah, of course. But next up, we're gonna move on to talk about two Nintendo Switch demos, Garrett. Now, normally I wouldn't consider Nintendo
Mm,
Switch demos news, but I wanted to give us a chance to talk about these two demos because I think one,
okay,
we didn't get these in a direct, which is weird to me. But two,
that
I
is
think
super weird.
I think these sound like great demos, and I know we've played one of them, and I wanted to talk about it. So number one,
Yeah.
Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak has a new demo. It basically I think the progress in that one carries over to the full game, and it
Hmm.
looks really cool. Like I'm someone who we talked about it on the Monster Hunter episode. I'm not super into Monster Hunter, but I definitely want to give this a try. I haven't had a chance to.
Okay.
I've downloaded it, but I haven't had a chance to jump into it yet. And
Hmm.
then we also got the Fire Emblem Three Hopes demo as well, Garrett, which you and I both played. I think both you and I
Yes,
both really, really like this demo.
it's a good demo, man. Wow, what a solid game! Just coming out of the gate. Um, I play, so this is Koei Tecmo's side spin-off game based off of Fire Emblem Three Houses. They've done The Age of Calamity, they've done Persona Strikers, and they did not disappoint with this spin-off from Fire Emblem. It is a true spiritual successor, not spiritual successor. It is a like almost it is a spin-off in true nature to the Fire Emblem Three Houses kind of just aura, its characters, its combat. Like even though it's a Koei Tecmo game, and I'm sure you agree, it is a Koei Tecmo game
Yeah.
first and foremost, but it sprinkles in a lot of the Fire Emblem Three Houses specific mechanics that we come to know and love, and it's actually really nice to see. It's very strategic. There's advantages and disadvantages. You got the weapon class wheel. You got different classes that you can upgrade with your characters throughout each mission. And there's side missions, so you can level up your other characters as well in the party. You get to choose one of the three houses, and there's a connection to the main protagonist of Three Houses as well. Yeah, no, this game got me hooked in this demo, and it's gonna be very hard to ignore because I've been playing other stuff on Switch. It's gonna be very hard to ignore this once it comes out. I think it's June 24th is when the release date is.
It is. It's actually the same day as AI the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, which I'm also
Oh
super stoked
no.
about as well. So I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm making Sophie's choice here, Garrett, trying to pick out, what game I'm actually gonna play, that
Right.
day. Because I actually didn't have this game on my radar because I've talked about it on other shows before. I'm
Hmm.
not the type of person who likes Musos. I don't really love the Dynasty Warriors games, and then especially like after Age of Calamity, like I loved the idea of doing like a Breath of the Wild spin-off game like Age of Calamity, but man, the performance on Switch just killed it for me. Like killed any interest in it. But combined with the better performance of this demo and the fact that it really, to your point, Garrett, really just feels like it's such a natural part. It's such a natural fit with three houses that, and as someone who really liked Three Houses, I'm like, sign me up for this game because I loved the demo. Yeah. Even though, again, the Musou combat is a bit mindless at times, I'm going to get through it because I love Fire Emblem, I love Three Houses, so I can't wait for this game. Like, I think the demo really sold me on it in a way I wasn't expecting to, and I can't wait to play it in a few weeks. So there you go. What about, so going back to Monster Hunter, Garrett, are you going to be trying out the Monster Hunter demo at some point?
I'm not too sure. Actually, I probably wouldn't go for the demo. If I ever go back to Monster Hunter, I want to just get used to the combat first and get to like the high star ranking in the base game before I get into Sunbreak. And that may not happen. Like for Monster Hunter, the mainline game for me, I need to get in the mood for it. It is certainly a game. I can understand why Monster Hunter fans are really into it because it is a boss rush, loot grinding game, and if you're really into it, then I could totally understand other people being super involved with it. For me, it's more like a mood. It's like, okay, I'm in this mood for like a month or something like that. Let me get into Monster Hunter again. But yeah, I don't think I'll check out this demo for now.
Okay.
But looks great.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're doing it.
Nice. Well, next up, we got two other showcase announcements that are going to happen later this week, literally at the exact same time of day on the exact day, for whatever reason. I don't know where they're timed together.
Wait, it's the same exact time.
Yeah, both on June 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 3 p.m. Pacific. I don't know why.
Couldn't Capcom change it? Because they announced theirs later. They announced their second. You could have been, we're doing it.
I was going to say Square Enix announced it like 2 weeks ago, but it didn't matter. It was Capcom said nope. So we got the Final Fantasy VII Anniversary Showcase on June 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to have not only celebration of Final Fantasy VII's anniversary, but also new announcements. So I'm imagining this is where we see Remake Part 2. I know people were a little disappointed we didn't see it during State of Play or anything else, but I mean, sounds like is where we're going to see it, and I can't wait to see more of where they go with that, because we got to the point in 7 Remake at the end of the first one where I'm like, I have no idea how they're going to use the current template they're using to kind of tell the rest of the story, because they got to basically the open world part of the game, essentially the original game. So I'm interested to see how they pull that off. But Garrett, I felt so bad for you because we were watching the Capcom showcase together, and by me and some other people. And they were like, all right, it's time to talk about Dragon's Dogma 10th anniversary. And then they pulled out, the director of Dragon's Dogma, and he's talking about, it's been 10 years since Dragon's Dogma came out. It's been such an exciting thing. So look forward to a Dragon's Dogma 10th anniversary video on June 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to last for 10 minutes. So, Garrett, how heartbroken were you?
They said 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think they came out. I think they came out afterwards and said it'll be about a 10-minute video.
Oh my gosh. Okay, man, that was You know what? Okay, sure. I'm not bringing my hopes up with this anniversary stream. It was more of a slap in the face for me, because that's really the only reason why I was watching the Capcom showcase, was specifically for the Dragon's Dogma announcement. And they just like, hey, we'll have a stream later. It's like, really? Like, you're gonna just do that? You're gonna make an announcement out of an announcement? Sure. Okay. We're in this day and age that's been, commonplace. I'm not gonna keep my hopes up with the sequel. I know the sequel's there.
Yeah.
The sequel is in the NVIDIA leak. It is there. They really wanted in this stream to know, hey, this franchise, remember it? It exists.
Yep.
It's been 10 years, but it still exists. We have a Netflix show, right? We have a game, and we kind of remade it and ported it. It's there. And it kind of feels like Capcom wants to wave arm this franchise a little bit before they announce a sequel, because I think they're thinking, oh, people forgot about this, like long ways. Like I got this game for super cheap on Switch. Like it's been constantly on sale. So I'm sure that they're trying to kind of raise the hype, raise the notice a little bit before they announce a big little thing like a sequel. So.
Yeah. I mean, we know it. Yeah, to your point about it, it's been leaked enough times for us to know that it's a thing that's happening. I mean,
yeah,
I will be really very disappointed in Capcom if the 16th rolls around and we get that video, because all they said, they didn't say there's announcements of that video. They just said it's a 10th anniversary video celebrating 10 years of Dragon's Dogma, and that's it. So if they don't announce Dragon's Dogma 2 there, I just don't know.
It's going to be another year.
Yeah. Like, be so
they're not going to announce it.
Because
they'll probably announce it in the Game Awards or some other next big thing.
Yeah. Because people have been waiting long enough for Dragon's Dogma 2, Garrett. People need Dragon's Dogma 2. It's got to happen eventually. So there you go.
We'll see. We'll see.
Well, in other news,
for another year,
we're going to move on to the Xbox showcase, Garrett. And this is,
nice.
I was surprised by this. This was the place we got the most RPG news of all the showcases that we got.
Isn't that interesting?
Because also, when we watched the Devolver showcase, there was some stuff I was expecting to see from certain RPGs there that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
That we didn't see. And I just didn't have a chance to check out the Wholesome Direct, so I missed out on that stuff. But first off, and this got me very excited, we saw gameplay of Diablo 4 on Xbox Series X with a new Necromancer class. We actually have all the classes for Diablo 4 revealed. We also finally got a release window, which is early 2023. So there's actually a beta coming very, very soon for this. I went and signed up. As a huge Diablo fan, as someone who's, spent like 300 plus hours playing Diablo 3 just to get the platinum trophy in it, and then
that's a lot.
Did it all over again on Xbox, and then played it again on Switch and on PC. Like, I love Diablo, and I can't wait for this game. This game looks awesome. But Garrett, I'm curious to know what you think about what you thought about Diablo 4 at the Xbox showcase.
This was an interesting one because I did not know this was Diablo 4 until they put the Necromancer next to the other characters. And then started the isometric view. I thought this was, I don't know, like some vampire masquerade type of deal going on with this Necromancer. And then they just revealed the other classes. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And then it was Diablo 4. I'm like, oh, cool. That's super cool. I really enjoyed of what I saw. I love the improvements on top of what we had in Diablo 3. I think graphic fidelity wise and smoothness wise and the tone of it, it looks like the direction where I want Diablo to go. I like how it's open world now, is a little bit more free roam. That's a little bit different than Diablo 3, which is more linear based type of game. I'm super excited. I think what I expect from Diablo 4 is more Diablo. I don't expect them to really change the formula too much, and you can obviously sense that from the developers and from that showcase that, hey, you're going to have classes, you're going to go through this game, and there's going to be an end game, there's going to be multiplayer. Like, you can sense this is the Diablo reiteration in the loop that everyone loves. And so, I'm totally on board for this game. I love Diablo 3 a lot as well. So can't wait for it.
And I think like the open world stuff and the open act structure of this game is totally really going to help with the multiplayer stuff too. Because one of the things that was kind of annoying with Diablo 3 was that since you had like acts 1 through 5, essentially, like I might join Garrett's game, for example. He might be on act 2, but I'm on act 4. So then I go into Garrett's game, but I'm like stupidly overpowered, and we're just basically just mowing through enemies. And I'm basically also playing content I played before. Whereas if we're kind of in this open world environment, we're free to kind of go wherever. And I think it's just really going to help smooth out that multiplayer experience and make it just feel like less of a feel bad or less confined anyways. And I'm stoked for this game. I can't wait for it. And we actually got a question about this from the Muffin Mon, aka Kevin Ainsworth, who wants to know, now that we know the classes for Diablo 4, what class will you two be playing? I am the barbarian for life, is what Kevin said.
Wow.
So the 5 classes in Diablo 4 are the necromancer, the barbarian, the sorceress, the druid, and the rogue are the 5 classes. They're all returning classes from previous Diablo games. There's not like a new class, but they've kind of like mixed some of them up in this game. For me personally, Garrett, I'm going to play as the sorceress because whenever I play Diablo, I'm usually the magic user. In Diablo 3, I usually the mystic was kind of my main for that game. And I really like Blizzard's take on spell casting classes. So I'm definitely that'll be my main, and then I'll probably do a rogue as well. Because I really like their design choices for rogues as well. So those are the 2 that I'm probably looking at. But what about you, Garrett? What's your class choice for Diablo 4?
Is Druid very close to Monk?
Druid essentially is a magic user, so he can use like elemental spells like Earthquake and Fire, but he can also transform into a werewolf or a werebear. So you've got like some melee combat while also spells. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm down with the Druid. I think that will be my main. I really enjoyed that type of class, changing into different animals and being physical and beastly, but also have some... I like hybrid type of classes that have some magic, have some range, but also can tough it out and have some physical attacks as well. So Druid will probably be my number 1. I am also interested in the Necromancer. I don't think I've ever... touched the Necromancer class before, and I'm really intrigued by it. I played a lot of Nobody Saves the World, and I loved the classes that rose monsters from the dead and just let them attack other monsters. I thought that was super cool. So yeah, I'm down to see what the Necromancer is as well. But I love class-based RPGs. I will, if a game's good enough, I will try out all of them and see which one I like. Yeah.
Same. Like with Diablo 3, again, I played the game so much because you had to try all of them in order to get to the Platinum Trophy anyways. So like I ended up leveling all of them to max level and had a great time with all the different classes. Because again, they all just felt so unique in both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, which is why I get so excited about the class design in, Blizzard games like Diablo, because they just feel so, they always find a way of making them all feel unique from each other. And it almost feels like a different experience when you're playing as each one. So yeah, I'm excited to try out all of them, but those are definitely the main 2 I'm looking for. Plus, one of the nice things this time around is you can actually create your own character this time. So you pick the class and then there's like a starting look for it that Blizzard usually does. But then you can make them male or female and then kind of, change up the looks for them too, which is going to be really cool. Being able to finally customize our own characters in Diablo, I think is going to be a good thing too.
And I remember correctly, this is a console launch exclusive, timed exclusive, right?
No, it is.
This is multiplat?
It's multiplat. It's coming to everything. It's coming to Switch too.
It's coming to... Oh my God. Yeah. No, we'll see how that runs.
I was going to say, that's probably the version that might not be the best one to go with, but... and also too... we have to remember too, because of the release timing for this will probably be over the summer next year, I'm imagining. So the Activision deal with Microsoft will probably be over by then. So this might even just be Game Pass too. So there you go.
Yeah, they didn't say Game Pass.
They can't announce Game Pass stuff with Activision yet. So yeah, cool. That's why I'm pretty sure this will be Game Pass. Even if it's not right away, it will be Game Pass at some point too. So
it'll eventually be Game Pass. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Next up, and this announcement actually really surprised me, and I actually added this to the document later because I actually totally forgot about this one, but I'm glad I added it. Wulong Fallen Dynasty coming in early 2023. This is an Xbox exclusive, coming to us from Team Ninja, makers of Neo, but as well the Ninja Gaiden games, and as well you've also got some from software developers who worked on Bloodborne. We're also attached to this project as well as some of the lead combat designers. And basically this takes place in the Three Kingdoms kind of dynasty era of China. And it has a lot of Chinese mythology kind of influences on it. But it looks like a Souls-like game, like something like Neo, but kind of taking place in the world of Chinese mythology. So I'm
Cool.
actually super stoked for this game. I love Nioh 1 and 2 on PlayStation 4. I think those games are awesome. And also, I just like Team Ninja from the Ninja Gaiden days, and also Dead or Alive, as well as a fighting series I really like from them. So when I got when we saw this announcement, first of all, I'm very surprised that this is, an Xbox exclusive, but also just
Yeah.
I'm stoked for this game. I think it looks great, and I can't wait to jump into this one. But where's your hype level on this one, Garrett? I know, again, Souls like games between the two of us are kind of hit or miss. So
Yeah, I'm not a huge third-person action game. I haven't really tried out Neo or the Team Ninja games as much either, but I'm very interested to see how this game goes. This is also Game Pass,
yep,
right?
100%.
Yeah, I'll definitely try it out. It is an Xbox exclusive, which is interesting to hear. They have some huge Japanese developers getting and developing this game. So I'm glad Phil Spencer is recognizing kind of the dearth of Japanese culture inside the Xbox ecosystem, and he's trying to introduce a little bit more into that. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see how this game does and how it reviews, and I will definitely try it out since it's on Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, this was kind of the theme for like the last part of the presentation. Essentially, was here are all the Japanese games, and trying to get more Japanese developers on Xbox. This also came around the time we got the Hideo Kojima announcement as well,
Yeah.
as well as some other stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to learn more about this stuff. But moving on, Garrett, the Hypus announcement, the one that got the internet talking, the one
Oh my
that
gosh.
basically when it happened, because for folks that don't know, because maybe you're only listening to this show, not some of our other content, basically myself, Sean Capri, and Court Lalonde got invited to Xbox Fan Fest here in Toronto by our friends over at Xbox Canada, and we were in this giant auditorium surrounded by like 200 other Xbox fans, but also some members of the media, to basically watch the Xbox showcase. And as soon as I saw the Atlas logo pop up with like the red, the yellow, and the blue streaming through the logo, I knew it was on. And
It was
there's
happening.
actually video evidence of this, because there was actually someone actually, I think it was Kofi over on Kofi Plays channel. He actually uploaded a video of the reactions from the event of when this got announced, and you can literally hear me from the back row going, yeah, like the top of my lungs. And it's amazing. And actually, I felt so bad in the moment for Court and Sean, who were right next to me, because they had to hear me yell at the top of my lungs, Persona is coming to Xbox, Garrett. I mean, last week you had predicted that sort of Persona would come to Switch during the Nintendo,
Yes.
Nintendo Direct. That hasn't happened yet. But guess what, Garrett? Persona's coming to Xbox first. So here are the details you need to know about this. Number one, Persona 3 Portable is coming to Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC in 2023. Just early 2023 is what they said. Persona 4 Golden comes to Xbox and PlayStation 4 in early 2023. It's already on PC. But I think it's coming to Steam, not Steam, as the Windows Store as well as Steam.
Windows Store, yeah.
Because it was on Steam before. And then last but not least, Persona 5 Royal comes to Xbox, PlayStation 5, and PC on October 12th. And it might sound confusing when I say PlayStation 5. There isn't a native PlayStation 5 version of Persona 5 Royal yet, but there's going to be with this update. And likewise, the version of Persona 5 Royal we're getting on Xbox is going to be a Series X enhanced version of Persona 5 Royal as well. And all three of these games, day one on Game Pass, baby, so you don't even need to buy them. But I cannot wait for these games, Garrett. I mean, and we'll talk about the details, but first I got to hear from you. What did you think about this announcement? How hyped were you with this?
What kind of reality are we in, Ryan? Because I'm still in shock that they had the Xbox logo, and seeing these three Persona, I could imagine one. I could imagine Persona 5 Royal, and I'll be like, I would be excited for that too. But the fact that they got Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden, they got those two. They owned the announcement before PlayStation. I know it's coming out on PlayStation, but they owned that announcement first. They announced it for Xbox, and you can tell now Phil Spencer's serious about the Japan games. He wants it on his side, and I think this is going to help a lot. I think cloud stream is going to help a lot as well in Japan. When I was, it was actually funny when I was hearing this announcement. It was, I think before it was Wolong Dynasty or something like that. And then, of course, Phil Spencer was talking about, yeah. And so I actually decided to make some coffee. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just listening to it. I need to get some coffee in me. And then I didn't actually see the Atlas symbols. I just like heard Phil Spencer's like, and we're gonna hear an announcement from Atlas, and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then I heard the Persona 3 portable song, and I could not believe it. I was shaking. I was like, how did they get this? How did they snatch this announcement away from Sony and away from them? That's actually huge. I think Phil Spencer knew this would be huge.
Yeah.
I'm super glad to have these games on Xbox. I'm going to play these on Xbox. I'm going to prove to Xbox this is a place to play Japanese games, including the Persona games. First coming to Persona 5 Royal, I'll replay Persona 4 Golden, and for the first time, I will play Persona 3 Portable.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I cannot wait to get back into these games. I'm glad that they're coming to modern consoles. It's kind of interesting to see Persona 3 Portable and Golden, I guess, having a PS4 version, and then the 5 Royal having a PS5 version. I thought that was kind of an interesting route to go. But I guess it's just the versions that they wanted to pull out.
Yeah.
And of course, Xbox is kind of it's kind of fluid with their versions, so it didn't really matter.
Well, I'm imagining there's probably like some kind of, graphical updates that might be doing, like small tweaks and stuff like that for Series X. Like they might have like a performance mode or something like that, or some other thing like that associated with it, or maybe like a super high def quality mode or something like that for Royal, which would be interesting. But yeah, more than anything, what's interesting about this too is the fact that it is Persona 3 portable, because we had talked about this on the show before about like what my dream scenario would be for Persona 3, and unfortunately that's not what we're getting, because the trailer made it very clear that it is just a straight port of Persona 3 portable. And if you're gonna do just a straight port, then yeah, I think it makes sense to do the portable version, even though I am going to be really sad to play that game without the cinematics. Yes, they showed the cinematic, the opening cinematic in the trailer, but all of those anime moments that you saw there for Persona 3 were from just the opening cinematic for the game, which was in the PSP version. But then all the cinematics throughout the game they took out and kind of replaced with these like visual novels descriptions of the cinematics, which just have just less of an impact than just seeing them, in fluid motion. So I that's the one part I'm sad about, combined with the fact too that when you're going to the open world areas, you basically, it just shows you a map and then a bunch of little indicators on it as you're like walking around a mall and stuff like that, and you're like, point to this person to go walk up and talk to them, as opposed to physically walking around and exploring like you would in traditional Persona games. So I am a little bit bummed about that, obviously, but at the same time, I'm just happy that people finally have a chance to play this game, because of all of the 3 games here, it was the hardest one, I think, for people to jump into nowadays. Yes, it's on Vita, but I just think not enough people really wanted to go back and play Persona 3 on Vita, and it's why people skipped it and played Persona 4 or Persona 5 instead. Whereas I think Persona 3, for me personally, is the strongest of the 3 games, and I can't wait for people to actually play that game for the first time because of an announcement like this one, and just getting into more hands. I think this is an awesome move. So
sure.
Before we go any further with this, I gotta bring in the most famous of all Seamuses, famous Seamus over on the Discord, who asked us a bunch of Persona-like questions. First of all, he says, because we had asked, of course, what everyone is super excited about from all the announcements this week, and he stated, the Persona games coming to Xbox, obviously. I screamed when the butterfly was on screen. I have to ask some questions about this. Number one, which are you most excited to play on Xbox? I mean, ultimately, I had answered this last night when we did our Xbox kind of review discussion. I'm going to play all 3 of these. I'm going to try and go for the crazy thing, Garrett, of trying to get all 3,000 achievement points in all 3 of these games, because I'm a mad
Good
man.
luck.
But I mean, Persona 5 Royal, I think, is actually the easiest. It's mostly just finish the game.
That's the doable one.
And do all the optional stuff. But it's
Persona 4 Golden's rough.
Well, Persona 3 is going to be the wild card too, because that game's never had trophies or achievements before, so we have no idea. But doesn't matter, Garrett. Persona 3 is one of my favorite all-time games. I'm going to get the 1,000 gamer score for this game. I don't care how much time it takes to put into it. So, I mean, it's going to at least require 2 playthroughs, one with each of the protagonists. So, there's that. But then, are you disappointed or excited that Persona 3 Portable is being ported instead of Persona 3 FES? Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I understand the reason why they went through that. Again, we just talked about that. And then the real question, Garrett, does this open the door? Do you think Persona 6 is coming to Xbox and PC day one as well as PlayStation?
That's an interesting question. I think the real question is Persona 6 going to be localized day one? And I think it's not. I think it's still going to be Japan. I feel like, when they localize it, I think it'll be day one Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. But originally coming out in Japan in that version, that's going to be probably a PS5 exclusive. And that kind of makes sense. Like, hey, let's start it out just like, locally. And then once we localize it, bring it to English versions, we'll bring it to PC and Xbox as well. And I think that will be pretty easy for them to do.
Yeah, I think you're right, bang on the money with the strategy. If they are going to do a delayed release, like have it in Japan first and then North America this time around.
Yeah.
But I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. After Shin Megami Tensei 5, Garrett, it proved that Atlus can do worldwide release and be totally fine with it and not have problems with it. So I'm hoping that with Persona 6 we get the worldwide release. And if it does get worldwide release, like whenever this game comes to North America, it doesn't matter when that is, whether it's delayed or if it's a day one all around the world. I am hedging my bet right now. I'm making my prediction right now, Garrett. It will be on Xbox and PC day one, as well as on PlayStation. Like that makes sense. But I don't know if that makes the most sense. I don't think it'll be Game Pass like these 3
I don't
games.
think it'll be Game Pass, to be honest with you. The Persona 6 is going to be a little too big for it to be on Game Pass. But very exciting. I'm sure it'll be announced at the Persona concert later this year. I'm very excited to play all of them. I'm very excited to play Persona 5 Royal because I haven't played that version, and I know there's a lot of extra content on there, including a couple of new characters I haven't seen before. So very excited to get back into that game.
Yeah, the Royal content's really good. So yeah, I'm excited for you to check that out for the first time. And we know there's only 2 more Persona announcements left for the rest of the year, Garrett. And I still think the last one is Persona 6. So any guess on what type of body wash we're getting for the next next Persona announcement, Garrett? Or soap? Is it going to be soap this time? Or
it'll probably be deodorant.
Cup noodle kind of
it's gonna be like the ramen. Yeah, the instant noodle ramen type of deal going on. The Persona 4 Golden version. They love Persona 4 Golden everything. I don't know why they like to cling to that game specifically, but every time they do a Persona weird off product in Japan, they just go back to 4 Golden. I think it's maybe because of the anime.
Maybe.
But anyways.
Also, again, this was totally the Xbox, showcase of surprises, because as Rebecca pointed out as well, Silksong being there too. I'm just like, I didn't expect this on Xbox at all. That was crazy. But and God, that trailer looks so good. I can't wait for that game too. That's gonna be day one game.
One thing I want to mention, both of these announcements, Persona and Hollow Knight Silksong, were both leaked before. And I won't get into the details because it's not part of the podcast, but I kind of been saying this guy is 100% hitting. He or she is hitting 100% of the leagues. And he's the one that put Persona and Silksong out there. I'm just still in shock and surprise with the Persona 1. It's a weird reality we're living in, Ryan, that I'm going to play Persona games on Xbox.
In fact, at the showcase, we were trying to, avoid spoilers as much as possible, because Sean and I purposely didn't go on Twitter at all to not get spoiled by any of the stuff. But Court Lalonde, who was sitting with us, was just like looking at all of the spoilers and stuff right next to us. So we were like not looking at all at Court because we didn't want to get spoiled on anything. So again, like it was super hype in the arena that we were in when Silksong came on. Like people were going nuts for that game. Just like they did when Kojima came on too. Like people like erupted in crazy screams and stuff. It was crazy being there with people. So that was such a great experience. But
I bet
the last thing we got to talk about from the Bethesda and Xbox showcase, Garrett, and I need to know your opinion on this one, being the resident Skyrim expert between the two of us. Starfield, we got like 15 minutes of solid, gameplay. Todd Howard taking us through a bunch of scenarios from here's what you do on the ground, here's what combat looks like, here's you leaving a planet and building your own ship and building your space colony, and then, here's what ship-to-ship combat looks like and how big the universe is, because it's ginormous. So I need to know from you, Garrett, what did you think about Starfield?
I know what to expect out of Starfield now. It's not going to be this big leap in terms of concept or in terms of gameplay. I think you're going to get what Bethesda's always good at, is the single-player, handcrafted role-playing game. I heard the main game is a little bit longer than the previous one, which was awesome. I'm glad that they're putting more story into it.
Yeah, they said 30 to 40 hours in kind of developer interviews that came out afterwards.
Yeah. And when I was looking through the demo and seeing the concepts, it reminds me a lot of Fallout 4, actually, than anything else, especially the opening and the gunplay and everything like that. And the base building on different planets. I'm excited to see more of this game and what potentially they have more in store. But for now, it seems like they're kind of going back to their roots in terms of the single player stuff. The only real difference with Starfield is the kind of the resource mining and going to different planets and ship building and ship customization. Those are kind of the more, I don't know, outside novelty concepts. And then, of course, the thousands of planets that scared everyone. It's like, oh my gosh, why did you do this? And it's just like, no, guys, I'm sure they're crafting it the best way they can in the way they know how. So I am coming into this game as this is another Bethesda single-player role-playing game. And it'll have its great things. It'll have its not-so-great things. I expect bugs day one. That's just how it is. Yep. I expect it not to be the best running game in the world, and I think that's fine. And I hope they take all the time that they need in order to prep this game up. There isn't I'm not worried about it at all, because from the get-go, I kind of get it, what this game is. And it is a single-player Bethesda RPG, and I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I will definitely be there day one. What do you think about it, Ryan?
Yeah, I actually thought, looking at the combat in particular, I felt like it was really a step up from something like Fallout 4, even, where
I agree.
It looked like the gunplay in particular just looked really strong, and it didn't feel like you needed to rely on something like VATS in order to make sure that all of your carefully aimed shots got through. I felt like that was their biggest focus this time around, was making sure that is all buttoned up. I will say there were some definite performance things that we saw, like some stuttery frame rates, and Sean and Donnie, when we were having a discussion last night about this, were pointing out, how the fire and kind of the smoke from the rockets kind of looked. It didn't really look the best, but at the same time, I think they can iron some of that stuff out. But even if it doesn't, it sounds like I'm just going to have a ton of fun going around exploring this galaxy and going from there. I do always worry when someone is like, and look how giant this map is, look how many planets there are, because it makes me wonder how many of those planets are going to be lovingly crafted by the team at Bethesda Game Studios, and how many of those are just going to be planets you go to and there's nothing there, or just empty and barren places, essentially. Which, again, if they do that, it kind of makes sense, because you're exploring space and some of these are uninhabited planets, so of course you're going to go to some planets and they're just not going to have anything on them except resources, and I think that's totally fine to do. But it's just I worry about maybe the unevenness that you might find with the gameplay with a galaxy that big. So I'm a little worried about that, but everything else about this game looks and sounds great, so I'm actually stoked for this one.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think you're right. I think the balancing between uninhabitable or lower crafted planets versus really handcrafted ones is gonna be probably their biggest hurdle, because that's gonna define the pacing of the game. I'm gonna be very excited to try to go to harder reach planets that needs extra shooting or whatever, but I get the rarest minerals and other types of resources they can get in order to get the best upgrades. I'm actually very excited for those type of planets as well. I know they're going to have a lot. When I was hearing Todd Howard's interview today, it was they have more dialogue than any of their previous games. It's not going to be an empty world, like an empty game, guys. This is going to be the biggest one out of all of them. So I'm not actually worried about its vast emptiness. I'm more worried about its pacing with its worlds in relation to kind of the gray area that they call thousands of planets.
Right.
Because that can mean anything. It could be some hybrid of procedural generation and handcrafted levels and handcrafted planets.
In development interviews afterwards, like Todd Howard talked about the game and didn't talk about the planets being procedurally generated. He said they're actually specifically designed, like everyone's going to visit the same planets when they go out there. Like they're not going to be procedurally generated or anything, he said. So
yeah, and there's no transition between planet to ship and ship to planet as well. He said that would be a little bit more of a wasted of their resources compared to what's more impactful, which I kind of get. I rather have a game that really speaks more on the gameplay rather than just like transitioning from going into a planet. Now, I'm sure that it wouldn't be great on the on the memory bandwidth, considering how big this game is gonna be. So, but yeah, I'm very excited for this one. I'm glad that Bethesda is kind of breaking the mold a little bit outside of their Skyrim and Elder Scrolls and Fallout kind of mantra and their cycle. I know they're gonna get back into it, but I'm glad Starfield is Starfield's gonna be an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. So, and we don't have too long to wait for it because again, it's supposed to be early 2023. If I was to guess, just make my claim now, I'm gonna say this game comes out next March. Is what I'm guessing for this game. That's my bet. Garrett, what do you think? Just throw a month.
I could see November 2023.
November.
I think
11/11/2023.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think the performance of it, they need to make it as good as it can be. And if that means another 6 months of getting the last 0.1% of this game rock solid, then do it. Because I would rather have a really great handcrafted world game. I know they probably can't afford that time, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I hope it's another year, actually.
And Yarden in the chat agrees with you and also says 11/11/2023, Garrett. So,
yeah.
There you go. But I'm going to be a little more optimistic. I still say it probably comes out in March because you never know. You never know with a game like this. But that was it for the Xbox showcase. They did also have an Xbox extended showcase that happened afterwards, which, by the way, Sean Capri and myself are in that video. By the way, we're in the background of the video.
Nice.
So if you pause the correct freeze frame, you can see me and Sean. They're hanging out with Steve Vegvari as well as some other fine folks here in Toronto because they had cameras at Toronto Fan Fest. So you can definitely check out that video as well. But what we learned from that as well is that Todd Howard also said that after the Elder Scrolls 6, they're doing Fallout 5. So Elder Scrolls 6 is probably still, like 4 or 5 years away, 6 years away at this point. And then they're already announcing their game after that, Garrett, which is probably, 10 to 12 years from now, which is Fallout 5. And which basically confirms we're not going to have a numerical sequel Fallout 5 in between now and 12 years from now, essentially, because maybe they'll do like a spinoff, like a New Vegas 2 or something like that, but no other studio is going to work on Fallout 5. So I already see you, face palming a little bit, Garrett. What do you think about this announcement? I think this is crazy talk right here.
I just don't know why Todd Howard felt the need to mention Fallout 5. That kind of like, as a fan, guys, I'm a huge Fallout fan. I've platinum Fallout 4. I've played through all of Fallout 3 in New Vegas on my Xbox 360. I don't understand why you need to mention this game exists.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be forever. And of course, plans change. They may, dive into it a little bit more and not maybe have a different idea or different projects. And I think in their interview, um, I felt what I felt from Todd Howard was like, oh man, we're gonna have a full plate. Yeah, we got Fallout 5 too. And I'm like, you are setting yourself up for this just same type of routine that you had since Skyrim, since Fallout 3, since 2008.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed with it. I want Fallout to be a little bit more than what it is, a little bit more than Fallout single player RPG, because it's a great universe filled with a lot of different things that can go to different developers within the Xbox ecosystem. I hope it actually transitions to maybe I would love a smaller Fallout spinoff from Obsidian or in Exile. Fallout 5 is not in my head, and I don't want it in my head. Yeah. I just wish they announced it later. I just wish, closer to the 2028 or whenever the new Elder Scrolls 6 comes out.
I love that you're so optimistic that you say 2028, because even that is like not even guaranteed with Elder Scrolls 6 at this point. Because it's like they just didn't need to make this announcement. Like and it's just like I said at the same time when they announced Elder Scrolls 6. It's like I understand why they wanted to make that announcement at that time, because there was a talk of people talking about the idea of like they were worried that the Elder Scrolls Online was just going to replace traditional Elder Scrolls games. So Bethesda made that announcement at the time so that people wouldn't be worried that there wouldn't be another single player Elder Scrolls game at some point. So I get doing it at that point, but you didn't need to announce Fallout 5 this early at this point, because now, of course, every time Bethesda has a showcase, people are going to be asking, well, where's Fallout 5? In fact, at the Xbox event, Garrett, before the presentation happened, there was actually a pre-show that they had with some Canadian content creators that came up, and they actually did their own little round of predictions before the show started. And one of them was like, the only prediction I'm going to make is that we better see Elder Scrolls 6 today. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen, because it's so far away at this point. Like it's
forever
like
away.
That, and that's the problem that creates, announcing it that far ahead of time with literally no information about it other than, it's coming at some point. So we're going to be hearing about people asking, well, where's Fallout 5? Where's Fallout 5? Like every E3 now. And I'm just, I'm not here for that, but,
and even the mind share for Fallout 76, a game that they want to keep supporting, they're going to look into that new expansion or the new development or whatever. And what's going to be in people's head, including the people who are huge fans of Fallout 76, is Fallout 5.
Right.
It completely steals the mind share of your audience. Mm-hmm. I just wish he didn't mention that word.
Yep.
He could have literally said other projects after. And that's all he had to say.
Yeah.
But Todd Howard being Todd Howard, I guess he's trying to gauge the audience a little bit.
I think so.
Do people want this, or do they want other things now from our studio? So anyways, a lot of things can change, by the way. So I'm not married to Fallout 5.
Yeah. And then the last bit of news, and again, we don't always talk about leaks and rumors on a lot of our shows, but at the same time, this is basically confirmed happening because it's literally on the PlayStation Store right now. It's just, you can't physically buy it yet. But Tactics Ogre Reborn is up on the PlayStation Store now. This is from Square Enix. This was also part of the NVIDIA leak, so we kind of knew this was coming, but basically this is like a remake or Let Us Cling Together, which is the original like Tactics Ogre game on Super Famicom, that also came to PlayStation Portable, which was a really good game. Basically, if you've ever played a Tactics Ogre game before, they're essentially real-time strategy games that are also turn-based RPGs, kind of like the Dealfold Chronicle that we talked about a little bit earlier in the year. And that's kind of where that game got its inspiration from. And I think the Tactics Ogre games are really fun. It was also, fun fact, Garrett, Tactics Ogre was one of two RPGs on the N64, because you had Tactics Ogre 64.
Oh, really?
And you had Quest 64, and those were the only two RPGs on the N64 as a console. And it was the only good one, too, because Quest 64 sucks. Don't ever play that game. But Tactics Ogre 64 is a really good game, too. But this isn't going to be really good at that. It's going to be of let's cling together, which I think this is awesome news because I think a lot of people just missed out on Tactics Ogre games because they were on the PSP or not. They were. It was
it on the GBA?
Oh, maybe is it? Maybe. But
let me check.
Tactics while you look it up as well, I know the North American print run of the Super Nintendo game version is like very low print run as well. So it's just I think it's a franchise.
It was actually PlayStation 1, SNES, Super Famicom, and Sega Saturn.
Right. So yeah.
Actually. So cool.
So again, it's a franchise that most people haven't played yet. So I really hope people actually give this one a chance too when it actually comes out. I would imagine we get a tweet about this in the next couple days announcing it's a thing. Unless they're announcing it at the Nintendo Direct, which might be at the end of this month now, I guess.
It could be at the Direct. It could be to be honest with you, I know it's Final Fantasy VII anniversary stream, but that's Final Fantasy related.
It's not related to Final Fantasy in the sense that it's an RPG from Square Enix and literally nothing more, Garret.
Yeah, okay.
That's a bit of a stretch. Good. I think this is probably just going to be a tweet, probably. But
cool.
Which makes me wonder why this wasn't at like the State of Play or something like that. But regardless, that's exciting news. I wanted to highlight it here because I really hope people check it out and go from there. So before we move into missing in action, I want to bring in our last two audience submissions for what people were saying that their most excited things. Of course, we heard from Famous Seamus earlier saying Persona was his most excited thing. And then we got the Muffin Mon returning. Kevin Ainsworth said, obviously incredibly excited for Persona 3 and 5 on Xbox and Starfield as well. Like both of those he was really hyped on. Kevin was also on our Xbox kind of review that went live on the Xbox Drive this morning. So if you want to kind of hear Kevin's thoughts about the RPGs and stuff that we saw from the Xbox showcase, go listen to that as well. I think it's actually a good listen. And also Donnie Reese was on that episode too, because he was eating all the hype. And then
of course he is.
Also Nagachaka at Nagachaka, which huge shout to Nagachaka. We met him in person this weekend at both the Carpool Gaming meet and greet, as well as he was actually on his very first podcast ever with us. We basically did a podcast in person with our reactions to the Summer Game Fest showcase. We basically did this around a table at our hotel room. We also had Carpool Gaming fan Jordan LaRose there as well, where we actually got to podcast with some fans, which was just an awesome experience. So huge shout out to Nagachaka. I know he listens to the show, so huge thank you to him to coming out and just hanging out with us, because he's at the bar with us afterwards, and we had a great time with him. So Nagachaka says, Starfield and Pentiment all the way. Now I have to convince my wife to let me get an Xbox, because Nagachaka pointed out he does not have an Xbox because apparently that's too much money.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Hey, do the Game Pass stream.
Yeah.
I would at least check out Game Pass, put it on your laptop, and do the game and cloud streaming. See if that's enough. That could easily be enough. And just get an Xbox controller. You can get an Xbox Series X controller for like $40 USD easily. So try that out first and see if that could be a good alternative route before you get into.
That's some good advice, especially with a game like Pentiment that he's excited about, because that's the new game from one of like the small teams at Obsidian. And it's essentially like almost like a point and click adventure, but it looks like the art's really weird. It almost looks like playing card art weird. Come to life, essentially, is how I described it. But yeah, like it doesn't sound like you're going to have anything complex with the controls there. So if there's latency, it almost doesn't matter. So yeah, I think that's some great advice, Garrett. Good call on that one. Trying out the color games. But now that we've gone through our audience selections as well, it's time to get into missing in action, Garrett. We got to talk about the games that were missing from all the showcases that I was expecting to see at some point, whether it was at Summer Game Fest or State of Play or something like that. And again, these are highlighting games that are not on Nintendo platforms. I included one Nintendo game at the very end that we'll discuss again, Garrett. But the rest of these non-Nintendo stuff, mostly PlayStation stuff. And again, I was just very surprised we didn't see those. So number one, the Diofold Chronicle. I made a prediction that we would get a release date for the Diofold Chronicle, Garrett, because it's still supposed to come out this year on PlayStation exclusively and PC, but nope, nowhere to be found during any of the showcases. That kind of gets me a little bit worried. Since we didn't see it, I'm very concerned that this game's not coming out this year at this point.
Well, Square Enix didn't really show too much, to be quite honest with you, this time around. The
Yeah.
only of note is before is Final Fantasy 16. So it's
Yep.
interesting that they announced the smaller third party, or not third party, but smaller role playing games beforehand in a state of play, and now nowhere to be seen in this one. Maybe they wanted to just announce it to get it out of the way. DioField Chronicle, I feel like that game is not this year.
Yeah.
We only just saw a trailer and we barely saw any gameplay. And they're getting assistance from another developer that actually made what did they make that we played before? Goodness, I can't believe I'm
Um,
forgetting the game. The
I'm
vampire one.
oh, I'm blanking on it too.
I can't believe I'm playing on it too. The Muffin would definitely know, and he's screaming in the podcast right now.
Oh my god. But anyways, moving on again, Garrett.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. I'm interested to see more, but yeah, I doubt it's coming out this year.
Yeah, I of those two games of this and the next game that we're about to talk about, I think that was the one that was the furthest along, or sorry, furthest behind.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm also in the camp now where I'm like, that's probably a 2023 game now. But the other game, I was super surprised we didn't see this one, Valkyrie Elysium. We didn't see this game at all, and this game, when we first saw it announced, I thought that was like pretty close to coming out anyways from what we saw. Like there was some graphical stuff that they needed to clean up from that, but beyond that, like the combat looked like it was there, a lot of the gameplay looked like it was there, like it looked like it was a game that was coming along nicely, but we just didn't see it at all, which is surprising. But and yeah, you're right, maybe Square has another event that they haven't told us about yet at some point. Who knows? But
that's my guess, because they didn't really show anything other than Final Fantasy 16 at the Sony State of Play.
Like they didn't even show Forspoken, which we have a release date for. It's this year too. So
yeah. So
and then
anyways,
but one I was shocked to not see at the Devolver Showcase, Sea of Stars is still absent, Garrett. We don't know what's going on with Sea of Stars at this point. There's no release date yet. It's still supposed Sabotage keeps saying it's coming out this year, but we haven't heard anything about it since. Like I'm worried for this game. I think it's a possibility this gets delayed to next year at this point.
Yeah, it can very easily be delayed. I see them update their kind of tweets every now and then. It's like, hey, here's a GIF. Hey, we're still working on it. It looks fantastic. I just, at this point, I think it's okay to not to delay it. I'm imagining, if anything, it could be at the Direct. This one screams Nintendo Switch game for me, and a classic role-playing game. So it kind of makes sense that it could be at the next Nintendo Direct more than anything, or an Indies Direct, or kind of a smaller stream.
That's true.
For sure. But sorry, so the studio that's in development with them, Landcars.
Oh, right. The Monarch developers. Yes.
Monarch developers, yes.
Yeah. And then next up, Star Ocean: The Divine Force. This is the Square Enix game I thought was like not even close to coming out, because this game looked real rough when they had the trailer for it before. But totally absent as well. And this again is another PlayStation exclusive game. Very surprised we didn't see this one either at some point either. But
oh really? I wasn't surprised not seeing this one. Very similar to, oh man, there's some other games like Dragon Quest 3 HD.
Yeah.
I imagine this game, they just want to cook in the oven a little bit more. Did they have a release date initially when they announced it?
2022.
At the State of Play? Yeah. But it's been a while since we've seen that game.
Yeah. Well, it was around the same time as the other two games as well, too. So it's like they all got announced around the same time, which is weird to me. But I'm still imagining one of those three comes out this year. And if I'm a betting man, it's definitely Valkyrie Elysium of the three of those games. I think that comes out this year.
Valkyrie Elysium seems the most promising. There was a lot of gameplay reveal at that Sony State of Play. I can imagine that being a fall, smaller Square Enix RPG. Yeah.
And Garrett, I wanted to include this one in here, even though I knew there was no way in heck we were going to see this one, because we haven't had the Nintendo Direct yet. But I wanted your prediction now. I want your updated prediction if it's changed. Do we see Advanced Wars at all this year?
I don't know. I really don't know if Nintendo is. I don't know how much is at stake with that game. They're holding it. They have physical copies made. They have it ready to go. I just don't know how much more cost it is to hold it and release it later. If it's too much to do, then they might as well release it this year.
Right.
So yeah, that's my guess, is that if they do release it, it's because it's way more expensive on their side to hold it till next year. Just because with the physical copies and everything.
Yeah. Well, it's not even just the physical copies too. Like the entire digital version of the game that was fully finished just went live on someone's account the day it came out. The day it was supposed to come out. Super random too. So it's just like, yeah, it's something. Yeah. Whereas I'm in agreement. Like actually, now that I think about it, I don't think we see this game at all this year. I think it gets pushed to next year.
That's totally believable too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm forecasting anyways. In my mind's eye, Garrett, I'm thinking to myself, Nintendo's probably got a pretty packed holiday this year. With Splatoon 3, with Metroid Prime Remake, we're assuming, with whatever else they've got coming out for us this fall. I think they've got a pretty busy fall, so they probably don't need this game to come out this fall. So they'll probably just wait till like maybe April of next year at this point, which really makes me sad because I'm really looking forward to Advance Wars a lot. I'm really stoked for this game, but yeah, I think they wait on this one, unfortunately.
I think based on recent leaks, I can see a Fire Emblem game coming out later this year. I could see Pokemon's definitely coming out.
Yeah, we already got November for that. Yeah.
Yeah, Splatoon 3. Bayonetta 3 is still up in the air. That could be a possibility.
Yeah.
And I imagine another first party game of some kind.
Yeah.
Zelda.
Yeah, there's always the I mean, they haven't told us about whatever yearly Zelda game we're getting this year, which is probably, we would assume, like Wind Waker or Twilight Princess or both. So
maybe.
Yeah. Something like that. Something else. I mean, I'm just most excited for Metroid, Garrett. Give me Metroid Prime Remake already. I'm chomping at the bit.
I don't know, man. They say they're done with it, or like leaks say that they're done with it. And I'm like, well, we'll see.
I mean, not Metroid Prime 4. Sure. Metroid Prime 4 is like years away. But but the remake of the original Metroid Prime, I'm thinking still comes out this year, which I can't. I'm stoked for that. Like, I will buy whatever crazy collector's edition they put out for that, Garrett, and put it on my wall. And just enjoy the heck out of it. Just like, I'm actually waiting for Atlas to eventually announce like a triple pack, like big collector's edition for Persona 3, 4, and 5. I would imagine they do that,
right?
Yeah, like I can't wait for the day that happens, and I'll buy that for Xbox and then show it on my shelf. One, to support the Xbox versions of those games, but two, because I just love Persona and I love collecting stupid editions of games. Just like, we haven't talked about this yet, but I pre-ordered the $200 collector's box for TMNT Shredder's Revenge.
You got the big one.
I totally got that one.
Nice.
Because I'm that person. I'm weak, Garrett, okay? That's just who I am.
That game sounds dope, and I think that's a good addition. Atlas does a really good job with their special editions, and it's a good value most of the time. They put out good stuff. I can imagine a triple pack, and then 3 plushies: the dog, Teddy, and Morgana.
I already have the Morgana and the dog plushies from previous collector's editions. Because I have the Persona Q2 collector's edition and the Persona 5 one. But yeah, I could always use more, Garrett. I could always use more plushies.
more plushies would be awesome.
But yeah, man, that wraps up our conversation about the news cycle. But overall, I mean, it would be silly for me to ask this question because I probably already know that it's Persona probably for both of us. But what was your most exciting thing overall from everything we heard about? What are you most excited about from this list of games that we talked about today, besides Persona? Because we know it's probably near the top.
Persona is probably the biggest one. I'll play that day one. I'm very interested in Diablo 4. And also Final Fantasy 16. I'm keeping my eye on. Okay, so Persona and then Starfield is probably my next one I'm really looking after. Then Final Fantasy 16, and Diablo 4.
Okay.
Those are probably the big ones I'm definitely keeping my eye on. And I'll definitely play Persona and Starfield. Day one Game Pass.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, awesome. We'd be silly not to play them in Game Pass at this point, right? So,
yeah.
For me, again, Persona is my number one. But as I said, outside of Persona, honestly, it's probably Final Fantasy 16. You know, being a big Final Fantasy fan, like I can't wait to see what Yoshi P does with like a mainline single player Final Fantasy game. Like I'm so excited for that. And then Diablo 4 would be my next choice right behind that because I've been waiting for a new Diablo for like 10 years now, Garrett. We're finally getting one.
It's been a while.
I can't wait to play this one because the last time we got a new Diablo game, like it was while I was in college. So I'm very excited for a new one to come out. And again, they said they're gonna be supporting it for like the next 10 years with a whole bunch of extra story missions and whatnot afterwards too. So yeah, I can't wait for that game. But as far as our predictions from last week, we talked about the idea of going through them today, but a thought occurred to me, Garrett, and that is we made so many predictions with the Nintendo Direct in mind. I propose we wait to go over those until the Nintendo Direct happens later this month. We'll do it on like another episode where it won't be it'll be its own thing later.
That sounds good to me. I think 99% certain that I'm wrong on all of them.
Yeah.
So.
I can't wait to learn how wrong I am about some of this stuff too. But anyways, Garrett, I think that's going to do it for this week's level of the RPG Cave. But before we go, Garrett, plugs go.
You can follow me on Twitter at Blind Explosion. You can also find me on the Nintendo Shack, part of the Play Some Video Games podcast network, where we're live each and every Thursday nights over at twitch.tv/PSVG. And we release everywhere, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, everywhere. So go check it out. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Very nice, my friend. As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You can find us on Twitter at Carpool Gaming, on YouTube at youtube.com/Carpool Gaming, and on podcast services around the globe. So for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been level 52 of the RPG Cave, and we're out.
Bye-bye.